25. This is the IPSD program. I'm watching the Charlie Kirk Psyop, Bread and Circuses, and I'm not a cynical person. But given that this is, by all indications, a Psyop, I do not believe that this is something that, quote, God put together. I don't think this is a holy event. He's being called a prophet. But I think what we're seeing here is historically going to be perceived as very significant. I think we're looking at how the power elite create gods, how they create saints, how they use the power of mind control to consolidate political power by tapping into people's emotions at a very deep level. Like, this is Jonestown times a million. And I'm not saying it's a death cult or anything like that necessarily. I mean, you can listen to their rhetoric and decide for yourself where it's going, but I just think that it asks a lot of those of us who don't believe. And it's hijacking legitimate spirituality and people's religion the way that entertainment has been hijacked by government for the purposes of propaganda. The fact that our entertainment, and we were just looking at Tulsi Gabbard, NSA director, she has a mirror character called Valentina in Thunderbolts that we've been talking about. And in Thunderbolts, she calls forth this weapon, the Void or something, and you see stuff falling from the sky. And coincidentally, when that trailer came out, Tulsi Gabbard was in Hiroshima, describing the devastation of the bombs. So she's a character we talk about a bit, meta scripted, written into this, and there she is speaking. And I'm just reminded of the fact that it's a closed movie set. These people who exist in the theater of Psywar are all contained within the same fictional universe. And what you're looking at here is mass deception in progress. They've ramped up, they've dialed up the mind control past 11. Like, it's passed all the way up. We've never seen anything like this. And people are comparing this to Martin Luther King now. He was literally called a prophet. And what's interesting too is, and this is all stuff that I'm screen capping as we go. In fact, I'm going to have to do an entire ebook on this. I'm writing it right now based on our research to date. But I'm going to release an ebook later today, and I'm going to bullet point and elaborate on all the various aspects to this, which make me call it a staged psyop. So I'm putting it out there. You're going to expect that probably tonight or tomorrow, whenever I finish editing. It started off as a blog post, but I just kept elaborating. And by ebook, I just mean something short, 10, 20 pages. But anyway, you're looking at a bunch of characters who participate in staged psyops, theater of psywar. People like Elon Musk, people like Donald Trump, people who have participated in previous events for decades. And so you're looking at them in the same context. What makes you think this would be any different? At no point does it become real. Not in the sense of it being objectively real. This is bread and circuses, mind control, ruling through essentially entertainment. I mean, entertainment is a huge part of the info war. You tie in entertainment with religion, fuse it with government and total control over media on a global scale. That's what we're seeing. And this is really probably the biggest thing that we've seen so far in terms of, like, this is bigger than the George Floyd thing. Or I guess maybe it's probably equal. We'll have to see. But it's just as significant. As I've been saying before, the reason it's significant that Charlie Kirk Day is on 10/14, and it's the same date that George Floyd was born, the significance there is you're looking at these martyrs who exist at the fringes of the political horseshoe, epitomizing what the other side views as essentially the worst that the other side has to offer, and then the martyrs for their own side. So George Floyd is a victim of society, but to the other side, he was a criminal element, deplorable, a result of bad government policies and left-wing wokeism. Charlie Kirk is seen as a saint, literally as a martyr, basically a god right now. I mean, they're worshiping the guy. But to the left, he's a white supremacist, bigot, sexist, wants to turn back the civil rights. So one of my axioms here has been for some time that if any of these events, or psyops rather, is split down the middle, bifurcated, it's fake. Real life isn't perfectly split like this. Penguinati says, can you be serious saying Kirk's death is more impactful than MLK's riot sparking city burning? Well, here's the difference. Left wing burns trash cans and breaks windows. Right wing does massive prayer vigils and convoys and trucks waving flags. I don't know if you've seen the numbers on these things, but right now, numerically, this is a significant event in and of itself. But across the board, the organization is actually that big. Turning Point has had 60,000 plus new applications for local charters. So this is a major 10xing of his organization post mortem, which is what the martyrdom does. Is what is intended to do. So this is a very effective psyop. It's probably one of the more effective. This is better than Butler in terms of the impact it's had. Like nobody cared after Butler. It just took a few days. So no, now say as far as this goes, I'm causing riots. The riots are going to happen, but they're not going to happen from the right. Right now, the protesters are very tepid. They look really weak because they're tremendously outnumbered. But the No Kings protests are being organized nationally right now to be deployed in October. And the No Kings protesters will be out in force when 1014 comes around and it's time to celebrate Charlie Kirk Day. And I don't know if you've listened to any of this. I've been watching it from the beginning. Every 5 seconds, you hear the name Charlie Kirk, and they're consistently, intentionally, Christifying this figure. He is ascended. I mean, this is insane. I thought it was pure necromancy when I saw these evangelical churches blasting Kirk out of the speakers, speaking in AI, saying, "Yeah, up here in heaven, it's great, guys. This is just a promotion. Keep fighting for America." I'm like, that's Charlie Kirk AI speaking to a church of people who are, it's idol worship. And I'm not trying to diminish the idea that we should respect and revere the dead and we should be against political murder. I'm saying this is all a facade, it's a charade. And we're watching people fall for it big time. But what we're seeing now is tantamount to the formation of a religion. And if you look at the demographics that have been targeted, it's all youth. It's all people who are in college who are completely on board with this. I see videos, just montages of children and teenagers saying, "I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk." Why would some, 10-year-old child say, "I am Charlie Kirk"? This is very culty, is what I'm saying. And this is an example of how I've said before, media has just supplanted religion as the primary vector for mind control. That is what religion is. I mean, you may be a religious or a spiritual person or whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying the way it's been co-opted by government in particular. Just like entertainment. I love movies, films, books, literature, etc. But we have to recognize that the popular stuff is corrupted by government, or rather, co-opted. I mean, why would we expect it to be any different? And the longer this goes on, the clearer to me that we're looking at a big fat psyop. Elon Musk is there. I think I saw The Rock, but I certainly saw Elon Musk. But all the usual right wing, uh, I guess you would call them, not really the conspiracy side, because these are more the neocons. So one of the important distinctions here is that Charlie Kirk was the leader of the youth in the mainstream, what you would call neocon MAGA, neoconservative, whereas Nick Fuentes, who was his antagonist, what is the leader of the woke right, the anti-Israel. And the difference is, and I picked up on this today, the woke right types will always talk about Christian nationalism, identitarianism. They've got a white Jesus. The mainstream Republicans use the phrase Judeo-Christian, and they love Israel. So there's that basic split in the Republican Party. And this is pandering to the mainstream Israel supporters. So just to give you an idea, though, of the scale of this, though, I mean, we're talking about 100. They're saying 100,000 people. I mean, some of them could be. I don't think they're. I don't think they have to fabricate the numbers, honestly, based on where it is. But anyway, it's not over yet. I'm going to go see if Trump's going to speak. I picked up on a few things. I screen capped it all. In fact, here's an interesting one. So one of the Turning Point leaders, I don't have his name right now. He's the bald guy, and he had this really um, impassioned speech about Erica Trump, and he quoted something. I got to get where he quoted it from, where it's about the wind. No, a storm. He says a storm confronts the warrior and says, "I'm too strong for you." And the warrior responds, "I am the storm." And then he says, "Erica is the storm. The storm is coming." So this mentioning Erica Kirk, calling her the storm, entirely comports with what I've been talking about, The Tempest, which has the Charlie Kirk-esque character getting shot in the neck in the same place the same day it actually happened, and the widow takes over, and she's coached for her first public presentation to cry on cue, just like Erica Kirk had a very polished public presentation to introduce her to people who didn't know who she was. So I'm watching the show on Hulu, The Tempest, and it's all about how the widow is the tempest. She is the storm. And now here we are at this memorial, and Erica Kirk is being called the storm. Yeah, that was something else, T Dog 135. The Turning Point references. And as I've been calling this out since 2020, if you look at my book, Metascript Decoded, I said Turning Point USA is going to platform the Turner Diaries, where you're going to have this massive BLM like response, but from the other side. And I said it would also catalyze the new era of censorship because of some graphic martyrdom that would be live. Only at the time, I surmised it was going to be based on the scripting around us at the time, Colin Kaepernick, whose initial, because of his connection to the 1619 Project, the kneeling symbolism, the blackout bowl stuff, and his ongoing activism, his initial CK also were part of this body of they're imbued with and attach them to Christ and martyrdom in some way. So I kind of thought it was going to be something like that, where you take out a hero of the people and the video necessitates censorship. It's like this, it's one step too far. But we're kind of seeing that now. Interestingly enough, as I was thinking about the comparison between these scenarios, how I kind of suggested something like this would occur, Colin Kaepernick is in the news again. I just saw him in People magazine because there was a series of lynchings recently. Well, hangings of black Americans in trees in various places. And he's going around paying for new autopsies because he thinks that these are lynchings that are being covered up. And what's fascinating is the MAGA rapper, well, I mentioned him earlier, Horatio Blow. He looks like Rosie O'Donnell with a beard. Well, he's there at the funeral right now rapping. I didn't see any nooses, but he just did a lynching rap just a few days ago, and he's been called out on it. So there's some fascinating stuff going on right now. G says, a Swede watching from Egypt. Thanks for joining. Here's your wrench. But again, so if you're not familiar with the whole significance of it, and I'm going to go into detail about this later, the oh wait, let me add one more thing. I was watching Joe Rogan, the episode where he's talking to Charlie Sheen, and while they're talking, they spend 15 minutes talking about the JFK assassination, and then they get the call, "Hey, Charlie Kirk got shot." They were just talking about the JFK assassination. So we're looking at Charlie Sheen here, and someone showed me the season finale. It's one of the episodes of Two and a Half Men with Charlie Sheen, and the episode is called "Charlie's Not Dead." Someone sent it to me. I'm looking at it, and I'm finding some fascinating little connections, which we'll get into later. But that's my statement here that I was going to say is that yeah, I don't think Charlie Kirk is dead. One of the things that you'll consistently hear from conspiracy theorists is the person is dead, but somebody else did it. Oh, here's another clue. They're saying that he was shot in the neck, and like Superman, he caught the bullet with his spine, so nobody else died. Like it didn't go through him like it should have. It's a miracle. So everyone's like, yeah, this is a big miracle, sure. They compared him to the Man of Steel on Fox News. And I was just thinking the shooter was spotted in Dairy Queen 17 minutes after the shooting next to a poster of Superman, Man of Steel. May not be a coincidence. Dr. Ben Carson gave a speech and he referenced some Bible verse 12:24 because that's when Kirk was shot. And I'll probably look into that a bit more. But I'm trying to see what kind of subtextual clues are being dropped here as they're presenting this thing. And one other point that I was raising earlier is that these things are all on a essentially a long-term script, what I term meta script. That you cannot miss the forest for the trees. In other words, this psyop wasn't planned 6 months ago. This is a scripted role ending in martyrdom that was likely written before he even took on the role. And we find evidences of the same for very popular characters like Elon Musk and Donald. Reinforcement content. You find predictive programming content, and the programming works. They manufactured the villain Donald Trump before he was on the world stage in politics as the villain. As we've demonstrated many times, we're just referencing empirical research, looking at the programming that goes into the program. The programmed take all this stuff in and react accordingly. Like I know people who literally were hoping Trump would have gotten killed in Butler. You know, I know people who, on the other side, are probably cheering for this death. Well, what accounts for these extreme reactions to strangers? It's just programming. It's mind control. You got to look at Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud, Netflix. Yeah, Ben Carson was the one who said there were two Trumps. That he did. He used to say that. It was just pretty funny. Dark Ghost Wind says, I Am Charlie thing is a callback to the French mass shooting 10 years ago with Charlie Hebdo. That's right. That's right. Another free speech moment. That's right, because it was over the. See, but that was to stand up for free speech because he was doing politically offensive cartoons, offensive to Muslims, which I think that was a psyop anyway. When it comes to the idea that if you draw Muhammad, some jihadi's gonna shoot you, like that was all hype. A lot of the Islamophobia was psyop driven. I see Laura Loomer banding that about. It's like, yeah, 2002 wants your psyop narrative back. It doesn't really hit these days. But yeah, that's a great point. And the significance of the neck wound in Kirk, the girl on the subway, George Floyd. We were talking about the significance of this against the backdrop of the COVID strain that gives you razor throat. And it's got to have some free speech implications. Because if you remember George Floyd, the I can't breathe and all that did occur in the context of COVID, which he had, and the masking, which I said at the time, the masking is symbolic of the incoming censorship. And we're there right now. I even predicted this. That's what I called Disease X. That they're setting us up through conditioning to accept the premise of quarantining the internet so we don't catch mind viruses. Well, they trained us on quarantine, on lockdowns, on masking and vaxing, so they could apply it to the world of ideas and thought crimes. And they've succeeded. You have the most banned comedian on earth, Owen Benjamin, endorsing internet ID to go on social media, saying that it's too dangerous. He says the shooting is real. Wow. I mean, I saw that. I was just like, okay, this is just either a really bad take from someone who has no clue, or this is an operative who's trying to sway his own people to think like he does. And I'm like, I hope his followers know better than to sign off on digital ID for social media as the result of a psyop. I mean, I'd like to hear a principled argument in support of it, sure. But to make that decision in the wake of a psychological operation, that's why they do these things. They do these psyops, they create a crisis. They never let a good crisis go to waste. You hear the Democrats say that. I think it started with Rahm Emanuel, but or maybe it started from Saul Alinsky. The idea is you create the problem, you get the reaction, and then you show them some solutions. So they created the problem, which was left wing hate. You got the reactions from both sides, and then suddenly the right wing is like, yeah, we got to cancel and censor people. Oh, look, Jimmy Kimmel just offended our saint Kirk. Jimmy Kimmel, you're fired. And they're all happy about it, celebrating it. Like, I never watched him, but I'm not celebrating his removal. But again, just to go one step deeper here, I don't think Jimmy Kimmel is a victim of censorship. He's an actor portraying a role. This is a psyop. He's part of it. It's in other words, it's sort of a performative censorship, like they did with Alex Jones. Clockwork 113 says Kirk's daughter's name was Gigi, like Kobe Bryant's daughter, Gigi. Oh, interesting. And that was also the daughter of, was it George Floyd, who was then going to be raised by Stephen Jackson as twin? I'll have to look deeper into that. I thought I heard somebody say his son's name was Tyler, which is the shooter's name. The names are getting interesting. So I mentioned Colin Kaepernick, who's paying for another autopsy on an individual that was lynched. The individual's name is Trey Reed. And if we go back, you'll see the name Trey, or an anagrams of, or close to it, since Trayvon Martin, have been consistently used for a lot of these cop brutality psyops, like Tyreek Hill being yanked out of his car. The actor in Rebel Ridge that came out at the same time, who portrayed the same scene, and these things were compared because they were contemporaneous, name was Terry. Then you had Tyree Nichols, another Rodney King like thing that was in 2023. Tyree Nichols. But this is a recurring pattern. So now we have this new one, and I'm like, Trey Reed. So I look a little deeper, and his full name is, I can't even pronounce it, but it looks like dead Trayvon Martin. It's a ridiculous looking name. Dark Ghost Wind says truthers think they're immune to psyops. Well, they're immune to some psyops when they're pointed out by loudmouths in Trutherville, but they fall for all the rest of them. Because truthers characteristically only notice the psyops that they're told to notice, and then they're told how to interpret it. They're told to look at it within a binary. It's not like the mainstream, it's the alternative. It's a little extra information. It's either or. It's either real or a false flag, which is also real. No, truthers don't realize that they're walking through the forest of fakery. You know, they think they're just walking through a regular forest and every 100th tree is fake. And there happens to be a big loudmouth with a megaphone pointing it out for them, handing out red pills. And free Q pipes. There's still some Q people who are expecting JFK Jr. to descend from the rafters in a ball of light and announce the war with the, I guess, the Pleiadians versus the reptilians and the deep state. Like, there's still some people who are pretty deep into the Q lore who think this is some kind of major turning point in their little paradigms. But no, it's not going to happen. I see a lot of people saying, well, September 23rd, the rapture is going to begin in a couple days. If somebody tells you that we're going to be raptured in 2 days, ask them to borrow their car. If you're going to be raptured and you got a van, let the IPS borrow it. I have an idea for making use of a mobile broadcasting station. If you're getting raptured, in fact, I'll house sit until you get back. I mean, how long until you come back with your upgraded bodies to come fight and save the world? I mean, I don't know the whole story behind it, but I think there's a rapture. You get upgraded, you come back in a body of light. But anyway, I'm open to house sit. I'll even watch your dogs, I'm assuming your dogs aren't going to be raptured to heaven with you. And when you start asking people to lend you their material goods, while they go ascend beyond the material plane, they'll say, "Oh no, I can't," because they don't really mean it. Anime Gematria says, "Is a penguin the mayor of Trutherville?" No, Trutherville is not really friendly to penguins. In fact, the Trutherville people hate media skeptics. They're caught up with the bait. They've got the hook in their mouth. It's like that little red pill has a hook in it, and you got the line. You follow it, and it's like, oh look, um, that one is being dangled by Candace Owens, and she's like, yeah, guys, I saw the video. There's no blood. Some people are like, well, that means it's fake, right? Candace Owens is going to blow the whistle that Charlie Kirk's not dead, and I'm like, no, they're just going to twist this around into more convoluted narratives to discredit skeptics, and that's exactly what they've done. So if you don't believe that Charlie Kirk stopped the giant bullet with his neck to save lives, if you don't believe he's a man of steel with bullet stopping power like that, then you're going to think, okay, it was a smaller round, meaning a different shooter. And every single second shooter narrative basically points to Benjamin Netanyahu. So the definition of Trutherville, just to be clear, the mainstream is Normieville. Now, if you don't go with the Normieville line of thinking, if it's not active enough, if you lean politically left, you'll find yourself in a woke town, where you learn that not everything is okay in Normieville. They're asleep to the fact that systemic racism is oppressing everybody. So they're not awake to their own oppression or their role as oppressors. So you have to go tell them, you're oppressing me with your privilege. I am oppressed. The system is oppressive. I'm awake to this. You're not. You're asleep. So Woketown is for the left wing woke. Now, if you lean towards the right, you're going to find yourself fed a steady diet of propaganda that leads you into what I call Trutherville. And Trutherville says, no, the real controllers of the world are the reptilians, obviously, the Rothschilds, which are all euphemisms that eventually point to Israel. So you have two competing worldviews at the fringes. Either whiteness controls the world or Jewishness controls the world. And each side claims to be oppressed by the controller. That's why it's highly significant here that Floyd and Kirk have the same birthday, because it aligns with the extremes and makes them martyrs, evidence of their own oppression. Like, of course, systemic oppression is there, because look